So did people do you get a message from this account? I have two different accounts. Do
Mine
you?
just has a little thing at the top that says recording and a little cloud going bloop, bloop, bloop.
Okay. There's some setups you can do that you have to, click to know you're being recorded. So anyhow, hi. Welcome, everyone. This is a parent chat for early childhood cares, and our topic for today is on what we can do to relieve stress around the holidays. And we know everyone looks forward to the holidays, or anyhow, there's a big buildup to the holidays. And we have Krista Swanson and Cathy Hyslop, two of our ECSE Early Intervention, Early Childhood Special Education Specialists, and also with expertise in behavior and autism and so many more things that they're going to give us some really good tips that can hopefully make the holidays more fun and enjoyable for everyone. But before I turn it over to them, I just want to remind people that Early Childhood Cares is a program that's an early intervention, early childhood special education program. And we serve all of Lane County. And you can just go to our website, and I'll put that in the chat for anyone who wants it. And to make a referral to see if your child would qualify, we serve kids that have developmental delays or disabilities in their families throughout the county. And we're really fun, so you might want to check us out. So with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Krista and to Cathy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Judy. Krista's going to screen share. We'll trade off back and forth. I see that most of the people that are here are associated with ECSE Cares from peripherals, not as parents. And I'm going to invite all of you, everybody listening, whether you're an EI student, whether you're a colleague, to participate in our discussion, because this is getting recorded so that people can watch at their leisure. And for people that are here that are parents, I really encourage you to add to our discussion. And we learn from each other. And so over the years, we've done this chat. We've changed it a bunch of times because we gather information from these discussions. So you don't have to turn your video on, but if you unmute and add information in the chat, that would be awesome. I'm hearing my computer being loud. Can you guys hear that? That's what I was talking about. That was happening to me before. Is that, yeah. I tried to get this fixed before. I'm going to try, hang on just a sec. Something with my processor makes it work overtime. And I think it's because I booted up the program too in case yours didn't work. I'm going to eject that. Sorry about that. This has happened once before.
You want to mute while you're trying that, and I'll just
you want to keep going? It will cool down.
Yeah, let's keep going. I just wanted to remind everybody about like Zoom etiquette. So thinking that if it's loud at your house, it's great to be on mute. Cathy was a good demonstration right there. But please feel free to unmute, and we'll just kind of popcorn a lot of responses. So we might have a question like, share this, and feel free just to share. Sometimes we might interrupt each other, but don't worry about it. We'll just keep rolling with it. Also, of course, take care of yourself. If you need to get water, get tea, go to the bathroom. If your children need tending, we all understand that in the world of Zoom right now, so that is just fine. So here we are at tips for enjoying the holiday season. And we wanted to just talk about what our plan for our time together is. So like Cathy was saying, we really love to hear about you and your ideas. That's how we learned most of what we know and have had a lot of information to share with parents. We want to be able to share ideas that we've learned from families through the years, and again, hear anything that you're planning to help your holidays go smoothly or things that you've heard from other friends. And we'll encourage discussion and do our best to make sure that everyone is heard. So we may need to move our conversation along. We just have an hour planned for this, but know that we're open to talking with families individually, or you could also check in with your service coordinator if you want to dive into holiday chat preparation or holiday preparation even more.
I'm psyched that my buzzing noise went away. Thank you for your patience.
Perfect.
Something I've noticed in doing Zoom presentations, and I'll turn it back to you, Krista, but I wanted to add one more thing. Something I've noticed is that there's weird awkward pauses that we don't have when we're face to face. And I call them pauses for opportunity. So sometimes we'll ask a question and then pause longer than might feel comfortable for people. But that's just to make sure people have a chance to unmute, to gather their thoughts, but don't feel like, oh no, no one's talking, we should be talking. We just want to give plenty of time for people to ponder and add in. So if we talk over each other, it just happens. No big deal.
Perfect. So here we are at our first question and topic. It would be great to hear from people what it is you enjoy about the holidays. You can really think about anything. That could be any holiday that's important to your family: Thanksgiving, fall, season changes, Halloween, Christmas, just weekend traditions. What do people enjoy about holidays?
I'll go. My 3-year-old, almost 4, the day after Christmas. That's him in the background. Loves Halloween and costumes. So that
love trick or treating.
You love trick or treating. So
Yeah.
that has like brought a whole new joy to Halloween to me. I think we went to like 10 different Halloween trunk or treats, different types of things over Halloween weekend this year, and it was just so much fun.
Ooh, that's great. So thanks, Megan. Just community events, it sounds like you, and especially this year, your child's at an age where you could explore and see what Lane County has to offer, which is a lot. There's a lot of fun things to do and lots of ways that can be dressing up, can be just stories at the library. I know the music school has some free concerts sometimes around Halloween. What about other people? Anybody else have special things they enjoy about the holidays?
I always really like cooking and just having the special treats that you wouldn't normally make, but for a holiday you go out of your way a little bit to make it.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. I would agree. I think the food, like lots of gatherings around people, or when you see families, there's some food involved, and I always enjoy that as well. Anything else that people really enjoy? I kind of gave you a hint to one that might be one. Families. Sometimes you see people you don't usually see, friends or families. So then let's kind of turn it towards children, since we're thinking about that. What might make holidays difficult for your child or for you?
One for us is just like splitting households, but also like going to my family's like get together where there's a lot of people, and then my partner's families get together with a lot of people, and it can be really overwhelming for my little one, especially like as we're working through sensory issues. So that is, the last year was really hard, so I'm interested to see how this year goes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Megan. I'm noticing there's 2 Megans, so both of you, thank you for participating. A lot of things become unpredictable, both for ourselves and for our children, and also thinking about other things that are different than daily routines, like crowds, more people, and we might be busier. There's a lot of things happening that we're trying to push into small time schedules, and so our whole lives might just be busier. Anything else that people feel can be difficult around the holidays for themselves or for their child?
I see in the chat that somebody wrote what I was going to talk about, just like the change in routine. It can be really difficult to be like out of the daycare program or child care center, out of, back in the home, and lots of family time, which is very different. So that kind of situation too.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Hilly, and thanks for following the chat. And sometimes we're up later. I think you were saying this, or our children are up later. You might have travel time, lots of things that can just be a little bit more difficult for children and ourselves. So what we wanted to do again is think about what our goals might be. So thinking about a goal for coming to a presentation like this might be something like, by the end of this session, I'll have a better understanding about the why, which would be what contributes to my child or my stress during the holiday season, and possibly some ideas about how to think about the needs that are behind the why of the behavior and how I might address them. How does that sound to people?
I'm super impressed that the folks that are sharing are hitting on some of those big topics, recognizing the impact of all the sensory. We'll be talking about that. And when I've done this chat in the past, and I just did it in my parent toddler class, people talk about their own mental health around the holidays, and there is an increase in depression. There is an increase, so even though it can be very joyous, it can be very hard. And I think just knowing that those feelings are all normal, that it's not just all great for everybody else but you, can really make a difference. And so just thinking about what your expectations are for yourself and for your family, and giving yourself permission to just let that stuff go and take control of what you can take control of. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and that reminds me, Cathy, I wanted to acknowledge we're in a stressful time. Like, we've really been in a stressful time for a few years. So things have been really different. The pandemic has impacted how people feel about their day-to-day. It's just increased stress when families have different opinions about the pandemic. And maybe our holidays were different last year. And so we're thinking, maybe that was good, maybe it was hard, but just acknowledging that everybody has been under so much stress. And here we go into a season, which, although really fun, can also be stressful. It's a little bit of the both. It can be both of those things.
Exactly.
Cathy, you want to go for it?
Sure. And you guys hit on a lot of these things. Routines change, sensory overload. Go into a store and it's crazy already. Our favorite places change, the looks of them. Family expectations or our own expectations. If travel's involved, that can be exciting, but it can also be stressful and outside of your family's daily routines. And then there's the thing we don't think about is how this changes in our home when we bring in decorations, when we rearrange the furniture to make room for a bigger table for more dinner guests. That can cause stress to ourselves and our children. So thinking about all the possible factors and what of those factors resonate with you and what can you control about that? Is there anything else that we haven't noted here that might contribute?
I like what you just said, Cathy, and thinking about Megan too, that sometimes it can be different. Like, maybe you love the changes in your home, but other family members really dislike it. So how you balance your whole family's needs around the seasons.
Here, go ahead.
I forgot I was in charge.
You're in charge. Yep. So we kind of go through each of these and spend a few minutes on each one. And we tried to pull out from this the things that we do have control over. And we do have control over huge elements of the routines in our life. It's easy to fall away from that without thinking about the ramifications when we have guests or we're going somewhere. But routines are important to us and particularly to our young children. They need that consistency, and holidays often bring anything but routines. Next. That's so fun. So things you can control as we move into this holiday season is maintaining those regular daily routines like bedtime, like one-on-one playtime, mealtime, so that your child has that continued consistency even when you're traveling. And we're going to talk about sharing that need ahead of time with families, so that people that are visiting you or the places you're going know what to expect. So when you think about your daily routines, what do you currently do on a random Tuesday in April? What's important to you and your family, and how can you embed those important pieces into your routine even as these changes are happening? Whether it's a favorite story or reading that favorite story before bedtime and sleeping with your cozy blankie. What are the things that you can hang on to? If changes in routines are difficult for your child, and you know there's going to be changes because you're going somewhere, consider practicing making small changes in what you're currently doing in your space where you do have that control. For example, if your child's never slept in a bed outside of their own bed and you're going to grandma's house and they're sleeping in a different bed, practice getting out a sleeping bag and put it on the floor and spend the night, have a camp out. Doing those things ahead of time so that your child both has that experience and you see what works and what doesn't, and the comfort of your home can make a big difference. And doing so in very small increments instead of we're now at grandma's house and everything's different. Comments about that or other examples of routines that you've made work in different places?
We can think of some things that we've heard from families in the past, and some of it can be like, what part of the routine, if you are traveling, can you bring with you? So Cathy had mentioned a sleeping bag. I remember we learned that from a family one year, that they started sleeping at home in the sleeping bag for a few weeks before they traveled, and then that sleeping bag went with them, and that eased their child's change in the sleep pattern. I'm thinking about a lot of families are probably using pack and plays, and you can pull that out at home first, or are there special plates or special cozies, all of those things that are important to your child. And you can learn what's important to them kind of by watching them, being that investigator before you go and seeing what things they're using around your house to regulate, and can those be part of your routines during the holidays as things change. Does anybody have an example of something like that? I feel like we learned so much during this topic.
My 5-year-old has a couple like lullaby playlists that he likes, which we have on an iPad. So sometimes when we travel, we bring that. And so he has the same playlist, like wherever we are.
Perfect. That's awesome. It made me flash on. It was in an airport, and I was watching this family that their child was watching videos. We talk about, we can't, like, so much time is getting spent on screens. And I realized that what they were watching is videos of their own birthday party and videos of their own family doing things at home. And I thought that was just a brilliant way to use a device in a clever way to help keep that connection. And it was just really a clever idea for keeping them reminded that here's fun things about your life and your home and things that we do together, and you're not just watching yet another cartoon or whatever it is. And that was a really neat idea to take traveling with you to entertain your child.
Yeah, that is fun. I have a couple of children who like watching videos of their cousins like singing or dancing familiar songs. It is nice.
So we talked too, and Megan mentioned that sensory overload. Does everybody know what we mean by sensory overload? We have felt it before, but have we really thought about, like, how does that stack up and get us? It's tricky. We know that sensory affects our children, but when we really think about, like, what is the issue with that, we sometimes don't really think about what exactly is going on. And I find that we often will be able to handle an input. There's a noise, and then there's a light, And then there's an unexpected movement, and it stacks. And eventually we get to the place where the TV that was on an hour ago at the same volume and the same brightness is now overwhelming, and it gets us. And we don't see it coming until we flip our lids. And this happens to us as grown-ups, and it happens to our children. And the trick is trying to address that before you get to the flipped lid stage. When you think about the holidays and the changes in your home visually, and lights and noise from people, the changes in your regular stores that you go into, and the ringing bells and the flashing lights, your child may be holding it together for a long time and then all of a sudden lose it, and it's like, what happened? When that was actually starting to stack at half an hour, 2 hours ago. So thinking about how your child currently responds to sensory inputs when they're at their best, and how those difficulties with managing multiple inputs might manifest when they're stressed, and practice addressing those again before you get into those situations where you're now in the middle of the store and your child's lying on the floor screaming, or you're at grandma's house and they are lying on the floor screaming. So just ponder sensory overload, and we're going to talk about, I think in the next few slides, things that we can do to help not get to that flipped lid thing by giving our children opportunities beforehand to regulate. Go ahead. So tuning into how they respond throughout the day, and practice those sensory calming activities before you go on outings. They ride in the car for 2 hours to go to grandma's house, and now they're supposed to go in and be quiet and sit still because everybody wants to go give them a hug. It's like, that's not realistic. So stopping at a park and going for a run, letting them be out. As you guys have been already talking about, bringing along those tools with you: headphones, blankies, chewies, favorite toys. Bubbles are a great, easy to travel with thing, and everybody enjoys bubbles. You know, in your own house you can break out bubbles and watch what the grown-ups do. It's pretty fun. Any comments or thoughts about sensory responses or questions? My child always does X when I go to this place.
One thing I was thinking about, which is just tuning in, is kind of watching and getting an idea of what your child's window is. So if you know that when you go to a park, you have like 30 minutes and then they usually have a difficult time, you can think about that as it relates to seasonal gatherings too. Okay, in free play at their preschool, maybe 30 minutes go pretty well, and then they start to have a more difficult time. So timing, though, using that timing and what you know about your child to plan some of your activities, and plan your exit as well. So you don't have to wait for them to show you that their time has run out, but you can kind of see that their window at performance or at their grandmother's house or a big brother's school event is about 30 minutes, and how you can use that information.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to say it, Krista. Planning those sensory body breaks every 30 minutes or so, not waiting until you see them start to flip their lid, because it's usually too late. Saying, oh, body break time, let's go for a run outside, or let's go jump on the trampoline if you have one, or just get out of the input causing place to take a break and then come back in.
Do any families have examples of what is kind of a sensory calming activity that they use frequently with their children?
I love Zoom pauses. It's such a strange format to communicate in, but it's good for our brains to process.
I think for us, my son's sensory stuff is just now getting bad, but before, like around the holidays, would always be stepping outside and just like allowing the cool air to like help calm down. Because I've noticed like family gatherings, that really warms up inside, and that I feel like adds to the meltdown. So we just like sit outside and allow like the upset to go through its phase before we step back inside.
Are you able to predict that, Megan, when it's starting to stack and get out there before? Or is it really, every child's different? So sometimes they seem totally fine and then they're screaming.
A lot of times he's totally fine and then it's like a break. I'm getting better now that his sensory stuff is more prevalent because it's getting worse. But I'm like, now that he's almost 4, I feel like it's getting easier to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to voice it a little bit more as well.
Nice. And that's that sleuthing we have to do, figuring out how do we anticipate and catch it before we flip.
Yeah, I also really like making that change the environment. We use that strategy all the time as teachers. Like, oh, Play-Doh seems like it's getting a little difficult. Let's show them something else that they might want to come to. And then eventually we can offer that to help them communicate, oh, outside. And if you see that look like, yes, of desperation, then that's a nice exit. That's a really good example. I'm thinking lots of young children just like to be held, sitting on their mom's lap or their dad's lap. Even that little bit of sensory input can make a big change for children in a crowded environment or an environment where adults are talking.
I appreciated the comment from Megan about going outside because I had a child and also a grandchild who gets very triggered, and holding only makes they get my energy too, unless I'm really calm. So I really found going outside effective, but also giving them tasks to move firewood or something that really sort of got him lifting things and engaged outside was also very helpful.
That's a super good point, Judy. Both of those, they're doing physical work and making sure that we as parents are focusing on our own calmness at the same time. Because it's stressful when you're the parent of the child that's having a difficult time in a big gathering. Of course, we're gonna feel that stress too. It's just a natural thing that happens with us. So when you go out to help your child regulate, it's an opportunity for you to focus on your own breathing and regulate too, and start listening. Let's look at the clouds. Wow, is this kind of nice out here? Wow, the rain sounds great on the porch roof. Good point, because we get dysregulated when our children get dysregulated, that barometer thing.
And I think this is coming up, but that can sometimes increase when it is with family. So maybe we have an idea or an expectation of how we want the child's interaction with grandma to go, or that grandpa really wants a hug, but your child doesn't like them. Some of those can increase our parental anxiety about like how our kids are going to perform or respond. So thinking about how we can make adjustments. And I think we're going to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right
there. Ta-da! Go, Krista. That was perfect.
Judy, were you going to say something?
No.
I can wait till after this. Yeah.
So some ideas, I actually love this picture, is, we might have this idea like, oh, the holiday, this time when we get together with the aunts and cousins, it's going to be perfect. And then that picture below, which Cathy was saying earlier, this really happens for all families. There's all kind of dynamics going on, and we really can't, especially with young children, predict how things are going to go or what thing it might be that sets everybody off. So a few ideas that we've learned over the years is one can just be letting people know. So maybe that means emailing your friends and family or texting them and saying, hey, when you come over, Michael doesn't like to hug, so let's not ask him, but he's okay with a high five, or he might run and hide. So then you won't feel like you have to explain that in the moment because you've already given family that information. If you just start playing Legos, maybe later he's going to come out and say hello to you. So that can kind of decrease some of that stress we sometimes have as parents. And this one is true for me, especially when grandparents or family might not be around. They might not have that real connection with our children. And so we might long for it. So how can we make that a little bit easier? Again, sharing that information about what will help them engage successfully. So, hey, my child loves Play-Doh. If you just sit down and start playing Play-Doh with them, they might like it. They love chase. If you kind of look at them and run away, then that might be where you see that bright smile or some delight in their eyes. And then we can even think about, this can be kind of a big ask, but we can, Kathy, I think you might be making a loud noise again. Perfect, thank you. I didn't want to flip my lid due to sensory. Asking our families if they have a space. So I know that sometimes my child has a hard time sitting in the room where everyone's talking. Is there a room that we might be able to escape to? Again, thinking about what you said, Megan, can we just step outside for a minute? But getting that permission beforehand so that when it comes up, hopefully we'll feel a little more regulated because we have a plan in place. Does anybody have any examples of how that's worked for them or how that sounds? Maybe communicating with family and friends about your children beforehand.
So one of the things that I wanted to say earlier, but I think it really fits here, is that I know with my grandson and my child that if they eat really a lot of sweets, I know this sounds classic, but you know, when I'm with family, sweets are always something they want to treat kids with. And I know how I feel when I have too much sugar. And so that's sometimes a conversation we have, and having some alternative things that they can offer kids, because I think grandparents and, you know, family members like to give kids treats. So it's something I had to be really proactive about.
Yeah, and just remembering that we can honor everyone's best intention. Like everyone is wanting to share that space and that time with your children, but setting some limits there, or saying, oh, I don't really want you to offer them all the cookies, but you could give them one cookie and put the rest away so it doesn't become difficult for my child to know why they can't have more. Also thinking about that you can consider if your child is going to be one who wants to sit at a crowded table, or will it be better for them to sit at a beanbag in another space, and just lay that foundation before you go. Like, oh, I've made a decision that my child's not going to come to the table when we're all eating. That's when they're going to sit over there and watch their favorite video or listen to their favorite playlist, and that this is going to work better for all of us so that I get the time to visit with you, or whatever that might be. And these can be hard conversations, but I think they can make everybody go in with a level of understanding and respect for both what's best for children and what's best for families, that can ultimately make that time together more fun. Any thoughts on that?
I'm going to try to add one more thing, and hopefully my computer won't go gunny bag again. The advantage to emailing ahead of time, or communicating it ahead of time, is that you'll get a sense for how your message is received, and not in the moment, because we don't all see everything the same. Parenting, our parents may parent us differently than we want to parent, and if you get into a power struggle in the moment in person, it can be very dysregulating and hard to get out of. If you share ahead of time, I want to offer my child a chance to sit away from the group, you'll get a sense by the response whether that message is well received and understood, or whether there's some concern around that. And it gives you an opportunity to work through that prior to being there face to face.
So let's see. So here are some other ideas that you might want to share with families, that when you first get there, you can't wait to hear their stories or meet their new baby. But first, you're going to spend a little bit of time, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, to settle your child in. We're going to do these things that I know are really going to help my child have the best time for the next 2 hours that we're here, be it pulling out special toys or reading certain books. And just with that emphasis that you'll get to spend better time with them if you first help your child become regulated. And Megan, you hit this one so well, taking a walk outside, and also maybe exploring that new environment. If you're visiting someone else's home, you could show your child where the bathroom is, maybe where that break space is, where they could go if it felt like it was too loud in one room. This could be a cozy spot, but giving your child as much information to make things as predictable as you can, like, you know, your home environment might be predictable for them. And again, just visiting that break area, maybe setting it up with your child, showing them that their blanket is there for them, their favorite milk cup, their favorite toys are available for them, and this is where they might find them. and then finding out again, following up on that outside, where they could go outside. Is there a place that your child might be able to go swing? Is there a park nearby? And taking frequent outdoor breaks can be helpful too. So we touched on this a little bit, just really communicating your needs to family and friends, both if you're going to their house and maybe if they're coming to your house as well. I may need to leave the room and go and help my child be settled in the other room. I might, and hopefully that again will alleviate your stress to feel like you need to go out and be a host. You can let them know what are your parameters. Oh, you can, whatever it might be. Everybody's level is going to be different, but you might say that you can help yourself to whatever food you can help do this cooking, or I'll be back out and I'll take care of it. But the more that we can plan and be predictable, it will help in case something does come up. I like this quote. I think it says, I think asking for what you need is one of the bravest things that you'll ever do. And it's by Brene Brown. But it again is that reminder that if we do this ahead of time and ask for how families can support you, you're generally gathering with family and friends who love you and care about your well-being. So they're likely going to help. Sometimes families just don't know how to help. So if we give them some ways, it might surprise you that things go a little more smoothly. This one can be a little tricky, but it's okay to have really strong boundaries about like when families can arrive and when it needs to be over. So saying like, oh, at 8 o'clock, we really need this gathering to wrap up because I need to focus on bedtime. Again, if you do that ahead of time, it's going to be easier than you feeling the stress and your child starting to show you that they're stressed and they need you for that nighttime routine and having to say goodbye to your guests. It's fun to think about what you could do differently around food instead of maybe putting all that pressure on yourself to create all the food. If that doesn't bring you joy, encouraging guests to help with cooking, ask them how they like to help. Some people do like to do dishes. Some people like to set the table. Some people might want to bring food, but how can you kind of reduce the load on you, especially when you have young children? And then, as gatherings go, I like how you said, Megan, that you feel the heat, but it can get hot, so you could open windows, but also thinking about noise. Often the noise just kind of keeps building. So if you let families know, through the night, I might remind you, oh, hey, it's getting kind of loud. Can we all just take a minute and lower our voices? Some families have that culture of like talking over each other or just really getting silly and laughing. And that can be great for our kids. For other kids, it might be difficult. Anything to add there that people are thinking of? So we talked about this a little bit, but here are some other ideas. You could have a potluck instead of trying to cook it all. You could serve on disposable dishes. So maybe something that brings you a lot of joy is using fancy dishes, but you could always get back to that. So I guess I like to remind people that you have permission to make changes and permission to make things easier while your children are young, and as well as permission to do it the way that you want to. But everybody kind of has their own ideas, but because you've always done it a way with your family, you could make some changes and say, this year, we're just going to serve it on paper plates to make it really easy. An idea that came from families is presenting food in ready to store containers instead of dishes that need to be washed later. Just thinking that the cleanup would be so much more quick that way. And then asking for help with cleanup. Again, I think people often really do want to help, but may not know how. So if you give it some thought ahead of time, you could say, oh, you can put all the bread products away, or you could push in the chairs or move the chairs back into the living room, or even just, you can get all the guests out into the other room and then I'll do the cleaning. But some of those little tips might be helpful.
I do find it so interesting. Now my computer's being nicely regulated, how everybody gathers in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And they want to chat, and that's all awesome until you're the one trying to get dinner on the table. And it's like, if you guys shoo out for a minute so I can get dinner on the table, then I can talk to you with full attention and not risk burning what I'm trying to cook right here. But it is an interesting phenomenon where everybody stands in the kitchen and stands there.
Yeah, so many opportunities to ask for what you need and ask for help. Do that brave thing. Kathy, do you want to
Yeah,
try this
my
one?
computer's being very good. I got to give it A+ right now. We've touched on several of these already, but there's some new ideas too. Sometimes we get in our mind, we're going to go on the big loop to visit all the families, whether it's a big, multiple overnight, or if it's half an hour at one family and half an hour at the next and half an hour at the next, to hit all of the cousins and all of the aunts and uncles and grandparents. But there are many holiday celebrations that span multiple days. And so thinking about not just the one day that is the traditional day, but spreading out those visits over several days. On this day, we're going to come visit you, and this day, and see how that goes. And again, communicating that ahead of time and saying, eventually we'll work toward being able to be all together, but we want to practice baby steps. So let's visit one family at a time, or invite one family at a time to your house. In other words, don't feel like you have to have the huge gathering just because that's what everybody expects. If you know ahead of time, it's not going to work for you. We talked about strategies for engaging reluctant children and helping people see how to do that. We iterated on it a little bit, but I really love the idea of asking when you're staying over to be shown to your space, or even if you're visiting for 2 hours, is there a place in your house that I can call my own for the next 2 hours, or for the overnight, and move into that first. Asking your host family if they can have things ready when you arrive can make a big difference. You just go right in there and get settled in, and come back out when your child is ready and you are ready. I don't know if that's big enough on people's screens. And we're talking about all holidays. So this just happens to be one representing the Christmas holiday, but the message is good. This is Santa on the couch saying, everyone expects ho, 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 but sometimes it's okay to say no, no, no. He's like tired of the expectations everybody has of him. We have talked about how our children do pick up on our mood, and it can be a real double-edged sword. When they start getting stressed, we get stressed. When we're stressed because company's coming over, we're not sure if Uncle Bob or Aunt Joe are going to talk too loud or be too critical or whatever it is. Your children pick up on that. That they're our barometer and we're theirs. So sometimes it can be helpful if you see your child start losing emotional regulation to do your scan of yourself. I think Judy mentioned that. It's hard when they start getting stressed. We get stressed too. So scan your own self and maybe start the regulation practice with yourself. Okay, starting to go up. This might go badly. I'm going to stop and take 2 or 3 deep breaths myself, and then make a decision about how I want to address the stress that's coming along. We have in our heads sometimes how we think things are supposed to go. But I guarantee that all of us that have these big holiday expectations had parents that were stressing out just as much as we do. We just, maybe when we were kids, didn't realize how much work they were putting into it. We're off playing or running around. It's okay if things don't go as you had hoped. You were picturing the perfect dinner and your child having a huge tantrum in the middle and you missed the whole thing. Learn from it. There's more opportunities in the years to come. My favorite is taking those breaks. If you've decided that you're gonna do body breaks every half an hour for your child, go with them. Take that body break with them. If they look like they're getting ready for a nap and you're thinking, oh, this would be my chance to come visit, I recommend that you go take a nap with your child, get some downtime so that you get that brain break as well. Because even though we love our families and we love big gatherings often, it can be very stressful to maintain those conversations and beyond for that length of time. Anybody have comments about their own expectations around the holidays and how you've helped yourself either get through too high expectations, or if you're currently even struggling with your own expectations and disappointment when it doesn't go the way you would hope.
I think I struggle with other people's expectations that my child will be so well behaved. And I remember last year, I'm like, oh, he turns, his birthday's the day after Christmas, but I'm like, he's only 2 years old. Like, of course he's going to be running around. He won't just sit still. There's so many people. And so that's one thing I struggle with, is just other people's expectations of my child's behavior that doesn't match their age.
Yeah, Megan, I think that is one of the truest things about being a mom or a dad, is that it sometimes can feel like you're parenting in a fishbowl, right? That everyone is watching you, and then your child's having a difficult time. So I think it's helpful to remember that this is common, that we are all doing the best we can. We are doing the best we can as parents, and our children are doing the best they can. And you can even say that out loud, like, whoa, this is really different. He is doing the best he can. Woo, he really needs to run right now. Wow. But some of that is modeling that these are all normal things that happen to children, happen to adults when we're in different environments. And I also loved, Cathy, how you were saying, like, taking a nap with your child. You're really modeling some problem solving. If you're like, hey, grown-ups sometimes have to lay down too. That's powerful for your children to see that. And also some of that naming, like, whoa, I'm feeling so wiggly. We've been sitting at the table for a long time. Some of that self-talk allows your child to hear it. It also might allow some of your family to hear it. Like, whew, it's getting really loud in here. I'm gonna go take a break. It's helping your children learn some of those problem-solving strategies.
Yeah, and again, that trick is to catch it before it gets to the 5-alarm fire. We set that timer on your on your watch to say, every half an hour we're going to take that body break, or just do that mental check-in with yourself and the check-in with your child. See, is everybody still doing okay? Are we all still regulated, or do I need to say, anybody want to go for a walk? Well, let's break it up.
Yeah, and back to what you were also saying, Megan, is some of these events when we gather with family or friends, they're designed around adults. So you're right, they're not really keeping developmental expectations for what children need. So we can kind of be that voice, like, oh, we need to move, we need to put on a song and dance, or who wants to go walk with us, who wants to go to the park. And we might be surprised at what relatives and friends also want to take a break or get a little movement in.
We all have those relatives or friends, people we know, or the internet's the worst for this, that make everything look perfect. Their children are perfectly behaved. Their house is spotless. The dinner is served to perfection with bouquets of flowers. Like, everything goes great. It's like, I don't think that really exists. And if it does, like, when are you actually being a human being and not cleaning and cooking and decorating your stuff? So dismiss those expectations. Don't try to keep up or compare yourself. Oh, if only I had the ability to do everything my friend Jane can do. It's like, it's not realistic. Be realistic with who you are and celebrate what you can do, and those baby steps. Over the holidays, if you can, make arrangements to get a break from parenting. Even if you have relatives over, making sure if you go out on a date with your partner, or arrange to have a babysitter come over so that you can get some one-on-one time with people that nurture your soul, or for your own just alone time. I like to just go by myself and not have to talk, and that fills my tank. So practicing self-care. And this is not just for the holidays. You can't wait till you're in the middle of a stressful situation to say, oh, I need to practice my breathing. It's like, practice your breathing when you're calm and regulated, so that it becomes tacit. Practice taking care of yourself, whatever it is, doing walks, doing yoga, whatever nurtures your soul, so that you have those tools ready at your disposal when you do need them.
So I just want to say that I encourage people to really think about their expectations. I know you touched on that, but when I finally figured that out, and I still do, it really made the world of difference. I used to think, my kids had to do everything the other kids were doing, or a vacation was going to all these different places. When I finally said, we could just go to the beach and be in one place and everyone is happier. And they were. It's just sort of making your expectations match a little more of reality is so freeing, but it takes a lot.
Yeah, I think that is super important as parents, and also realizing that your expectations may be different from your parents or your friends, and that's okay, and their expectations are different from you, but that we all kind of get to make these decisions as parents, as families. And then again, just what Cathy was saying, even little doses of self-care, whether it's like read something funny, watch a little comedy, call a friend to say like, my sister's driving me crazy, that all of these things are okay, and they could help you have a more peaceful, more joyful gathering time with friends or family. And then again, thinking about those arrangements of break from parenting. Sometimes you have family that might be visiting and might want to offer that, but not know how. So kind of doing some planning in your head, like, okay, if they watch their favorite movie Moana, me and my sister might be able to go and have a cup of tea in the other room. So you're still there, but you're arranging kind of this break from parenting. Or I could make a phone call or just do something because my child's going to be happy, and the family member might feel like they're getting that special time with them as well. Maybe your child's one who likes to sit on the lap, or some people haven't seen all of those animated movies, and they can be so fun even for adults to watch. And then we talked about this, but I do think it's a really important one, is thinking about how your child likes to greet, because there can be some pressure there of friends or family wanting to hug or wanting to get that eye contact from your child. So if you can set that up and say, oh, that's not going to happen at the beginning, or they do love a high five, and you could practice high fives for this few weeks before gatherings, or they just like to wave, that's what they want to do, or they want to give you a book, so you could practice that, like, oh, this is something you can do to create that connection. Oh, give grandma a book. And if your child's practiced that might honor both the grandmother's need for wanting that with the child, and making it more easy for your child than like a hug or a high five or something like that. Anybody have either of the Megans? I know you guys have children. Are there things that work well for your child to enter a group or say hello to someone they haven't seen for a while?
My kiddo is a clinger when it's new people. What's great is we go to my grandma, so his great grandma's house, and she has started watching him 2 mornings a week to get him on the school bus. And so he'll just go straight to the toys. And so he doesn't even want to say hello to people. And he just takes about 10 to 15 minutes if he's in a room with somebody, to warm up enough to say hello. So thankfully, most of my family has realized that yet. But I try to explain when they're a little disappointed he's not hugging, that he's just not that kind of kid.
Yeah.
I sometimes call those hiding hellos. It's like he's going to give you a hiding hello, and they're hiding behind your leg and don't want to make eye contact. In making it still it's a hiding hello today, and making it be like it's still a hello, even though it really isn't, and that's okay.
I like that term. I'm going to have to use it this year.
It's a hiding hello. And something you said, Krista, reminded me of a phrase that I learned again from another parent, that is just so handy to have in our hip pocket when we get advice from well-meaning friends, family members, that doesn't resonate with us, or when we're hearing, oh, you should do this, when I didn't allow that, or when you just get conflicting comments from family members that doesn't work for you. And that quote was to say, I appreciate that you want to share ideas with me. What I'm doing is working for me. And it kind of takes away the competition. What I'm doing is working for me. Like, they can't argue that. No, it's not. It's like, yeah, it is. So having a response that you're comfortable with, if somebody does tend to give you unsolicited advice or even is critical, having a response that you're comfortable with, that you practice ahead of time so you don't flip your lid in the moment. Oh, appreciate that you have lots to share, but what I'm doing is working for me. Just really kind of gets to the heart of your message, which is stop telling me what to do.
Yeah, I love that. I also was thinking that it can be helpful, like, so sometimes if your child doesn't have that connection with other friends or family member, like how can you pair them with something great? So thinking about like Baby Shark, if your child is one of the millions of toddlers who loves that song, hey, if you come in and you sing Baby Shark, you might see a little smile or a recognition. Or we love this book, Goodnight Moon. If you have it and just start reading it without an expectation, it might extend that. And I think we learned this from families years past too, is you could ask grandparents or uncles or aunts to make a recording of themselves reading one of these favorite books or singing one of these favorite songs that you show children, or children maybe even just listen to before that person comes into your home. And that might ease some of that transition time or ease some of that like settling in time.
I'm looking at the time. We have a few more slides that are most of these are pretty evident. This is talking about expectations for gift giving, and for some people that can be really exciting, but for others it can be stressful. Krista, I think you mentioned this. This is our chance to create new routines and maybe move away from some of the things that we may not have enjoyed about our own holiday experiences. If you were in a family that their expectation was a ton of gifts and you didn't like that, this is your chance to start new routines that at the holidays, I think one of you mentioned this in the beginning, baking together, taking those walks, driving around to look at the holiday lights, create traditions that don't have anything to do with the gift giving aspect, but more just the event of being together. Have a special, instead of just the decorations that come out that are for the house, special books and toys that come out for the holiday that you revisit. So just think about other ways to celebrate holidays that maybe aren't the traditional expectation of the one big day. A couple more. Thinking about your home, we should touch on this for a couple of minutes. If it's okay, we'll go a couple of minutes over. If you're going to make changes in your home, which we often do in the holidays, and we've talked about how that can cause difficulty for our kids, consider not doing it all at once. We'll sometimes set aside the day that we're going to decorate. So we move all the furniture, we bring all these new things in, and now there's all these lights. But if we slow that down for ourselves and for our children, it can make a big difference in giving you information about what's too much, and reminds you to stay into your daily routines. If your daily routines didn't involve 6 hours of decorating before, you might have a hard time doing that now. So thinking about what things are really important about those decorations, do that first, see how it resonates, and then keep going, but don't change everything all at once. Some great ideas around, if you do bring in a tree, which many of us do, having those child-friendly ornaments at the bottom. Remember, you don't have to have a tree. If your child just wants to knock it down or mess those ornaments up, you can have a tree outside, or you can have a tree next year. Or I had one family that would put a paper tree on the wall and let their children color it. That was their tree. So again, thinking outside that expectation box, and think about what would be fun to do that it causes less stress or no stress at all.
I remember one idea that we've had is some, like even a felt tree with little felt balls of Velcro that kids can put up and take down, because lots of children love to do that part. And so instead of having, and you might do that as well as a tree, so there's one spot where, yes, you can do that, but it's tricky, and we can think about it from the eyes of a child or the developmental age of a child. that they see these things that might be fancy, so that we might not want to put our fancy stuff out, and it's confusing why you wouldn't touch it. Why wouldn't I play with these beautiful things that light up or are fun and special that we haven't had around the house before? Those are the ones that some of our curious kids are like, that's exactly what I want. So if it's special to you and important to you, maybe you put it either in your bedroom or you don't put it out right now, so that you don't have that upset of things getting broken. And I think the conclusion and final thoughts, and we've tried to run this through the presentation, is that a lot of this is relaxing your own expectations, understanding that you're doing your best, your kids are doing your best, and seeing how you can find time to enjoy yourself no matter what happens. So thinking about the commitments that you make, thinking about ways that you might be able to make them predictable or help other family members support you, taking a nap, even if company's coming over, being okay if the house is a little bit more messy than usual. Anything else to add there, Cathy?
Take naps.
Naps, yeah, rest, honor the rest.
Take body breaks and naps with your children. Thank you all for being with us. This will be a nice recording to share with others. Appreciate the input people offered. We learn from everyone every time we do this, and have more ideas to add for future chats that we do.
Well, thank you, Krista, Joe, and Cathy. You're a wealth of information and experience, and I always learn something when I see this. So I'm looking forward to posting this on our Facebook page and with Lane Kids, and hopefully it'll help a lot of families. And I hope you all saw in the chat box, I did put our website down, which is earlychildhoodcares@uoregon.edu, or call 541-346-2578. So again, have a good evening, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Megan. Both Megans.
So Kath and Krista, Joe, would you mind staying on a minute?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Hi.